So I first met Dhardo Rinpoche in February 2013 in Kalipang. So Virya Gita and I visited him at the school that the predecessor, Dhardo Rinpoche, his picture's down here, the 13th Dalai Lama, the 13th Dhardo Rinpoche's picture's here, who's also our teacher, so Sangharakshita, and they had a school together in Kalipang. And Dhardo Rinpoche is there now, and we actually stayed with his father, Virya Gita and I, so it was a pleasant opportunity to really be introduced to Dhardo Rinpoche in a way that I saw him in his hometown. And then he came in June of 2013 to dedicate the ground that the stupa was built on. We built a stupa at Nagaloka. And then he's come back this time to dedicate the stupa. So he's been at Nagaloka since Saturday. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then he's leaving on Saturday. So he's been quite busy while he's been here. He's been doing dedication ceremonies, pujas, meeting up with people, giving talks. And so he's pretty warmed up now. Mm-hmm. So what we're going to do is he's going to talk a little bit, and then we'll have an opportunity for questions, and he'll give us some answers.
Hello, everyone. Hello. And I'd like to start by greeting everyone, friends and order members of the Nagaloka Buddhist Center here in Portland, Maine, right? Portland, Maine. So this is the second time I've been to United States, my second visit to the United States, but my first time to this part of the city, Portland and Maine. And the first time I came was in June 2013. And for the main purpose of dedicating a stupa site. A stupa is, as you know, is a structure which is built it represents the mind of a Buddha, and in this case the stupa which we have right now built in Nagaloka right now is actually contains the remains of the previous Dhardo Rinpoche, that is the 13th Dhardo Rinpoche in line. And Dhardo Rinpoche was actually the spiritual friend and teacher of Venerable Ugen Sangharakshita, who founded the Triratna Center originally. And so the causes that led me come here is, as Dharmasuri explained earlier. So in February 2013, I usually live in South India. I don't live in Kalimpong. I've been studying there for nearly 15 years now. I joined the monastery at the age of 10, and I've been studying philosophy there at Drepung Loseling Monastic University. So I've been studying there in South India, and I came for a vacation actually to celebrate Losar, that is the Tibetan New Year, and that was during the month of February. And it seemed that Virya Gita and Dharmasuri here, she had come to my father's place and was staying at my father's place at that time. And so they wanted to see me, visit me, and so actually that was the first time we met in February 2013. So they were talking about building a stupa, dedicating a stupa for the previous Dhardo Rinpoche. And this is not the first time that I heard that there were already stupas built for the previous Rinpoche, because there was quite a few, I think 7 or 8, right? Other stupas around the parts of the world. And I thought, okay, why not? Yeah, you should build, it's a very good idea. And so after that, I went back to the monastery, and Virya Gita and Dharmasuri had contacted my father about saying that they wanted me to come there and do the site blessings. So usually before putting a stupa, usually what you do is, in a Tibetan Buddhist tradition, we have to bless the site so that there will be no obstacles for building the stupa. And so they wanted me to come over there in Aryaloka and do the site and do the site pujas. So at that time, when they were actually wanted me to come, I had to visit a friend in the United States, and I told them that I can come. I mean, I don't have to come separately. I can come in this visit itself. So I came and I did all the site pujas and so on. And this time, and at that moment, I made a wish that that I may come again when the stupa was actually completed. And this has happened very soon enough. And recently we had the stupa fully built, and the purification and all the preserving pujas done for the stupa. And I think that this is some kind of experience that I will never forget. Because as you know that the reason that I came here is, I'll start by explaining from where it all began. And the reason that I came here is because of the connection between, possibly between the stupa and Bhante Ugin Sangharakshita and all the Triratna members and the Mitras, friends, or you call it. So as you know that the previous Rinpoche, that is the 13th Dhardo Rinpoche, he was actually born in Tibet, and brought up in Tibet. And he was born in a part that was called Tarsindo. So Tarsindo is eastern Tibet, and it's in the Kham region. And he was the 13th in the line of the Dhardo Tulkus, that is the reincarnation line of the Dhardo Rinpoches. And he completed his studies in Tibet. He finished doing his scholar in Buddhist philosophy and Buddhist doctrine, and he finished with the second highest position, I believe, in the monastery college. And after finishing his studies, he joined the Tantric college in Tibet. And because of ill health, he had to come to India for medication. And during this time, he gave many teachings to the people in India, to the Sikkimese people, to the Nepalese people, and many other people. And because of this, he was very well known for his compassionate nature and being a simple but very educated monk. And after Rinpoche left back to India, there was a Ladakhi monk from Ladakh known as Ladakh Lama, and he had built a monastery in Bodh Gaya where Buddha achieved enlightenment. And that monastery was a kind of a Tibetan tradition monastery. And this monk, he wanted Dhardo Rinpoche to be the abbot of the monastery. And so then he requested the Tibetan government at that time to let Dhardo Rinpoche be the abbot of the monastery. And after the Tibetan government approached Rinpoche, Rinpoche accepted, and he moved back to India. And he worked in that monastery for 12 years. And after that, because of the heat conditions, severe heat conditions in Bodh Gaya, which is in the state of Bihar, in which the climate is very hot, and he had health conditions, so he had to move to Kalimpong. So that's the hill stations near Darjeeling. So that is the part is northeast India, in northeast India. And while he was there, he built a school, and the school's name, the school is still here, still present, and the school's name is Indo-Tibet Buddhist Cultural Institute. And the school was mainly built by him for the refugees people, the Tibetan refugees coming from Tibet, and also of orphans who were already in India at that time. And the main idea to build the school was to preserve the Tibetan culture, Tibetan language, and the Tibetan unique Tibetan tradition, because he feared that the young Tibetans would lose their their identities, and because of that, he started a school, and not easily, because at that time, he didn't have any kind of financial support for the school, and he had to build the school based on his own with his own financial status, which was not so good. And so he had to, since being a Rinpoche and since coming from Tibet before 1959, he could bring quite some of his possessions with him, and for building that school he had to sell all his possessions to build that school, and which he did. And so he managed to have a school with 50 orphans at that time in Kalimpong, and and then still there was a lot of financial problem, and the school children had to study in the day, and they had to work in the night. They had to sew, make shoes, and they had to make, the girls had to make wool and so on. So there were very much hardship in that work. And later on, Rinpoche he met Ugyen Sangharakshita, also known as, he referred to him as Inji monk, that is the English monk. And so during their time together spent in Kalimpong, they formed a friendship which is not just ordinary friendship, but I call it transcendental friendship, because it was a spiritual kind of friendship, where the friendship never dies. And I think that because of that friendship itself, and not only friendship, but Rinpoche himself was a teacher to Sangharakshita in many ways. And I think because of that connection, since now, when at the age of 5, I was actually recognized as the reincarnation of the 13th Dhardo Rinpoche. The 13th Dhardo Rinpoche passed away in 1990, and I was born in 1991, and I was recognized as at the age of 5, I was recognized as the reincarnation of the 13th Dhardo Rinpoche. So I'm supposed to be the 14th Dhardo Rinpoche. And I was recognized by many High Lamas, one of them being the 1990 Ganden Tripa. That is so Ganden Tripa is actually the representative of the founder of Gelupa's school, which is my school, Tsongkhapa, Lama Tsongkhapa. So he's the representative of Lama Tsongkhapa, and so he recognized me. In Tibetan we have a system of divination and many other things to identify, and I wasn't present, so that is what I heard, and yeah, so that's how I was supposedly recognized. And I believe there was a lot of dreams and so on with my parents and people connected with the Dhardo Rinpoche, which I will not explain in detail, and I think you can see that later if you'd like. But so this is how I was connected, how I am connected, and at the age of 10, because when I was first recognized at the age of 5, my parents were not willing to let me be a Rinpoche, since my mother was a very modern woman, and she was not a religious woman. She's not a religious woman. I don't think she's religious right now too. And so she didn't obviously want her 5-year boy to go to a monastery where she didn't she didn't know much of. And so she didn't want to give her child to the monastery or to be a Rinpoche. And at that time, my father was not such a religious person, but I believe he is now. So they, didn't want me to be a Rinpoche at that time, and I had to go to a Catholic school till 10 years. Because they really do teach very good English. In Catholic school. So my school was St. Augustine School. And I'm very grateful that I went there, because if I didn't go there, I wouldn't be talking to you today. I wouldn't be able to talk to you today. So I think that I got my English and the ways of communication and everything because of that, and I'm really thankful for that. So at the age of 10, my mother had to send me to the monastery because my grandmother was a very religious woman, and she was very persistent. So she obviously, told my mother that, if you don't send your, son to the monasteries, since he has such a big potential to be a Rinpoche and help many people, you will be a sinner. So I believe it must have affected her in some ways, and I had to join the monastery back in South India when I was 10. And I've been studying there till now for nearly 15 years, studying philosophy and so on. And so now you know that, how I am actually connected to this stupa and Venerable Uga Sangharakshita and the Triratna people. And let me say this, that this stupa, let me say how important a stupa is. So the stupa, usually the term is in Sanskrit and is translated from Sanskrit. I believe it's known as the heap. But in Tibetan language, we refer the stupa as chöten. And chöten directly translated in English means place of worship or base of worship, whatever you say. And the stupa, as you see, that the shape of stupa itself has a different kind of has a different kind of significance by itself, and it actually is the symbol of the Buddha mind. While we have this, as you know that there's the three symbols of the Buddha form, Buddha speech and Buddha mind. And while we have the rupa as a symbol of Buddha form, and we have texts by Buddha as the symbol of Buddha speech, so the stupa is the symbol of the Buddha mind itself. And while we may see it as some kind of made of stone or mud, it has a different kind of a meaning behind it, different kind of significance. And the stupa itself, as you see, there's a base, a foundation, and on top of the foundation you may find something like a throne, and that is, as you know, that is a completely throne. And in many ways, a stupa is in the form of a Buddha, actually in a meditative posture. So the stupa meditation is the ways you can practice is not only on the outwardly form, but actually what the stupa really means. And the stupa is built to inspire people. So, because when we actually see a stupa, we just don't see something outwardly, So what we really need to see, I believe, is that we need to see that the stupa, when we see the stupa, what we need to experience is that why is the stupa so important? It's important because the stupa really signifies that of someone who has really achieved something and who has really inspired us to do the same. Because the remains which lies in the stupa is not of an ordinary being but of someone who has really achieved something in their life, who has gone beyond what other ordinary beings, could, not have achieved. And I think in this case, the stupa having, the the 13th Dhardo Rinpoche's, I think the remains is something of a great significance, because when I see the stupa, I feel that when I worship the stupa, when I offer the stupa flowers, I feel that I'm not just offering flowers to the stupa to the external form, or but instead I am offering flowers and to the stupa, not just on the external part, but especially on the compassionate nature of the person whose remain lies in it. And I think that is something very inspiring. And so I think that is one of the, why I feel very grateful that I have been able to come here and do the dedication puja for the stupa. And I am very, very grateful and very thankful. And I think that all the members of and friends of the Triratna should be thankful to the people who worked behind the stupa building, making this possible. And especially Virya Gita, Dharmasuri, and I don't know all the names, Amala, and all the stupa kula, the stupas people who worked for the stupa, making this possible. I think that this will really, benefit people, inspire people, and make people even practice more and help them in their practice and make them accumulate much merit, I think, for generations to come, if it's possible. And I think that's a very great deed we have done, and I think that we should all rejoice on that. So that's what I feel, that that's why a stupa is so important. And I think that this is the first stupa of the Triratna in the United States. Yeah, and so I wish that in the future that more stupas will be of great human beings to inspire people, and make people, help people in their everyday lives, and help people prevail happiness and kindness and compassion. So that is what I hope and wish for. Yeah. So thank you, for having me here. And so, and if there's like anything you'd like to ask me, please, you mean my daily schedule? Yeah. So so the routine is kind of the same. For myself, I usually wake up at around 5:30 a.m. and I start the day by doing some breathing yoga practices, and after that I do some sadhana practices and other meditations, and after that, obviously breakfast. Okay, and after breakfast usually I memorize texts. Memorize texts. So so just to make it clear, right now I'm studying in Madhyamika class. So in our monastic college curriculum, we have we study for many years, not just many years. And right now, currently I'm studying in Madhyamika, and we study 3 years of Madhyamika. And I've I've already completed the class of 7 years of perfection of wisdom, which we study. Before that, we studied 7 years on perfection of wisdom, on Maitreya's perfection, Abhisamaya Alankar. And on Madhyamika, we study Nagarjuna's Madhyamika, and also of Chandrakirti's Madhyamika. and many commentaries by Lama Tsongkhapa, the founder of Gelugpa sect, and so on, and even commentaries from other great Tibetan masters. So right now I'm studying in the third, so I have to do memorization based on that text, and so annually I have to give memorization of 160 pages, and I cannot do that at once, so I have to memorize, almost every day, bit by bit, and that's why I have to memorize every day, and so that's what I do after breakfast. So after my memorization, usually we go to something that's called debate that happens at 9 a.m. in the morning. And debate is a kind of a study that happens with two people, and it's like actually like a quiz, like it starts off like an argument actually, and so there's a role of a questioner and someone who gives the answer, and debate is, I feel that debate is one of the best technique to actually gain knowledge of something that you don't know yet. And I think it's a very quick way to know, because using this special technique, I feel that it's very straightforward, very clear, and I think it cuts off hindrance very quickly. And that's how we use the debate technique to study into different subjects, like different philosophies and different logics. So that happens from 9 till lunchtime, and after lunchtime we have a little bit of nap time, and from 2 again we go to classes, that is like teachings based on philosophy and stages apart by different teachers, and after that we read what we have already learned. I mean, in the sense that we read different philosophy texts and different commentaries on it, just to gain knowledge and wider our knowledge on that. And so after that, we have dinner at a very early time, 5 p.m. And so after dinner, we recite what we have already memorized, because if we don't recite it, then we will forget what we have actually memorized in the morning, in the evening. So we do that every day. And so 5 to 7, after dinner, that will be over 6, so 6 to 7, between 1 hour, we recite. And from 7, we go to something that's called like a puja, a proper puja, where we actually recite the Heart Sutra, the 21 Tara Puja, and do a little bit of meditation on emptiness at that period. And that happens till 9 p.m. And from 9 p.m. we start debating again, when everyone is actually going to sleep, yeah. And from 9 p.m. till 11:30 p.m. And so 11:30 p.m. the debate is over. We go back to our rooms, and we do whatever meditations and rituals that we are committed to. And so by the time we go to bed, it's already 1 a.m. and then the whole day starts again. So that's the usual schedule we have, yeah. The school actually has many Rinpoches, I think 40 plus Rinpoches, more than 40. And the large number of monks are not Rinpoches, I mean. So in our monastery, we have 3,000 monks, and most of them are not Rinpoches. And supposedly in my class, there is 88 monks, and I'm the only Rinpoche in my class. But there is no special treatment or no distinction between Rinpoche and monks when it comes to debate or studying. So it's just the same, and we go to the same teachers, study under the same guidance of the same teachers, and we debate with each other in the same manner as any student would do. It wasn't there prior. It's like a substitute monastery to the one that is in Tibet. So in Tibet you have, in the Gelugpa school, you have the three, it's known as the 3 seat of learning. And in Tibetan we call it Densa, so it's translated as 3 seat of learning. So these are the 3 main monasteries that students go to study philosophy. And known as Drepung being the largest number of monks, and Sera and Ganden, and all in Lhasa. So after 1959, when all the refugees came back, so we had no place, and at that time all the monks were in the place that's called Buxar Dwar, that's in India. And later on, we moved to South India and resettled and had the new monasteries brought up. I suppose I think that it was very hard for my parents and family around me, and I personally I was quite prepared, because at that time when I was 10, I already had the I already knew that I was actually going to a monastery. It was not like I knew nothing. People were already telling me, all my family, so they were all preparing me for it and so on. And I think that by the time when it was time to go, I think that I was ready to accept my destiny. Yeah. I've been studying there for nearly 15 years now, and just to get a scholar, graduate, it takes just for a normal graduation, it takes around 4 more years to do that. And if I want to get something like a doctorate on Buddhist philosophy, then it takes 8 more years to complete all of it. And after that, I don't know, it's too early to say. I would like to go to the Tantric college and study on Tantra and do some, stay on some retreats. And if I can help some people through my teaching and so on, then I'm happy to help. It's still going on with the old tradition, especially where the actual tradition came from, the Nalanda University tradition. So I think that we are more or less going on with the tradition, but in some fields I think that we are evolving, in the sense that now, the study of science is now in our curriculum. So that is a that is an evolution, so study of science, and I believe study on different I think quantum physics is also there. So these are, I think, starting, because of a thoughtful insight of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, So now we are finally starting to study on these fields too, and especially on the connection between some connection between science and Buddhism and those fields. I think, so I think it's getting progressive in that way. Well, I think that we should. I personally just sometimes see newspaper. Newspaper coming, so I think it's important to know what happens around you. Because you don't always live in the monastery. Sometimes you have to step out too. And it's always good to know what is actually happening around. So I think that is important too. Since we are in the 21st century, and I think it's important that we know what is happening. And you wouldn't read news when you're staying on a retreat or something, but for a normal day, I think I think that yes, I think it's getting. Buddhism is really spreading at a very quick rate, and I think this is one of the main reasons, because Buddhism has many traditions. Not just one tradition, especially like a Western Buddhist tradition is there, the Tibetan tradition is there, the Chinese tradition is there. So there's variety of traditions, and Buddhism doesn't necessarily contradict each other, So every tradition is accepted, and I think that because every aspect of it is on gaining wisdom and spreading compassion, message of love, I think that's why it's being the progress of the rate is spreading. So I think that my hope is that even though the concept of the Buddhism is not spread in such a manner, I think that the message of love and compassion to be spread is, I think, very important, and I wish that that may be spread. Especially when I'm visiting Buddhist centers like Ayaloka and Nagaloka here, when I'm outside, I can see the city, so busy, and everyone is so tensed, and everyone looks so busy, and I think when I step inside and something like this, the atmosphere is totally changed, it makes me more calm, and I think more open, to everyone. So I think that this is the kind of way, I think a kind of place that a busy city or a place like a Western country really needs. And I think this is the way, where you should really, we should really, people staying in Western countries should start, to really, get some understanding of Buddhism and, get a break from their daily lives. Yeah. This monastery is called Gum Yiga Chuning Monastery, and this monastery is located in Darjeeling, near Kalimpong, approximately 2 hours drive from Kalimpong. And it is on top of the hills, on top of the mountains, hills. It's higher than Darjeeling, and I think it's, I don't know about the sea level, but it doesn't matter, I think, how above it's sea level, but that's not relevant to what I'm trying to tell you. So this monastery was built in 1850, more than 100 years old, and it's considered one of the World Heritage, actually, Yeah. And I think one of the oldest monasteries in Darjeeling itself, which has a vast history, and first built by a Mongolian monk in 1850. And later on, this monastery was looked after by the Rinpoche called Tromogye Rinpoche. And after Tromogye Rinpoche passed away, this monastery was left without any kind of Rinpoche or Lama to look after. So I'm telling you this because this is connected with Dhardo Rinpoche and possibly Sangharakshita too, and I heard that he had also visited the monastery. Yes, so that's why I'm telling you. And so this monastery was without any kind of person to look after, and this was really falling down, and all the structures were falling down and so on. And this monastery is a really beautiful monastery and has a 2-story foot Maitreya Buddha, the Buddha of the future. It's very beautiful, and everything looks so ancient, and different. Very, very precious artifact. Like rupas and so on. And so when Dhardo Rinpoche was living in Kalimpong, he went to Darjeeling occasionally to perform rituals to the mother of His Holiness the current Dalai Lama, the 14th Dalai Lama. The mother had some kind of illness, and Rinpoche went and did some rituals every now and then. And during that time, the monastery had a committee to look after it, a committee assembled by the local community there, local community there. So, and had a few monk members. So they approached Rinpoche and requested Rinpoche to take charge of the monastery, to look after the monastery. And Rinpoche refused because he already had many responsibilities back in Kalimpong. He had a school, an orphanage to look after, and which, he didn't have much financial support for it. And because of that, he refused. And so they subsequently, they approached the Holy Mother, and they requested Rinpoche, they requested Holy Mother to tell Rinpoche to take charge of the monastery. And so the Holy Mother, she said to the monastery, you have to look after the monastery. And Rinpoche had to accept it. And Rinpoche looked after the monastery till he passed away in 1990. And so the monastery was left for many years like this. And just 5 years ago, I visited the monastery, and the monastery, as I said again, that they didn't have anyone to take care of the monastery, no one in charge. So they told me to take care of the monastery. And I reluctantly agreed. Yeah, because the monastery, I have responsibilities too, and I have to study back, in my studies, and it's such a hectic schedule that I don't have much time to look after the monastery. But I accepted because I couldn't refuse. It was the predecessor had become the abbot of it, and had many connections with different levels of the Sangharakshita and different levels. So the monastery was in a very bad state when I accepted it, because the monastery didn't have any kind of rules and regulations, because of the time space between Rinpoche's passing away and me accepting it. The monastery had completely fallen down, fallen off, and all the rules were fallen off. There was not any kind of proper monks there. There was no restroom facilities. Obviously the people went into the jungle, and so the kitchen was totally broken down and so on. So I agreed, and just we have been really trying, and we collected funds from well-wishers and so on, and eventually we built a new prayer hall for the Vesak period, that is the fasting retreat during the fourth month of the Tibetan, according to the Tibetan calendar. And about the school, I just wanted to add that, so I just want to continue with that story that I left off. So Rinpoche had a very difficult time with the school till he met Bhante Sangharakshita. And when Ugyen Sangharakshita, after he met Ugyen Sangharakshita, Sangharakshita wanted Rinpoche to come to the Western countries and teach, and Rinpoche said that it wasn't required. And he said that if you go, it will be better than if I come. And I think that he meant it because since Ugyen Sangharakshita was born in the Western community and brought up here, I think he would know much of the Western community people. He would know the dispositions and inclinations of different people who have been born here and brought up, same people like him from the same country. And I think that was the reason. And so after Ugyen Sangharakshita went back to West, he sent many of his disciples, and they came to the school and so on. And slowly and gradually, the school was very well supported, and is currently being supported by a trust known as Karuna Trust, which is part of the Triratna Center. And so the school right now has students of nearly 300 students, nearly 300 students, yeah. And they are both boarders and day scholars, like coming from outside. So, and many of the students, orphans, some of orphans are being sponsored by different Karuna trusts and different people, who are like kind people, well-wishers, who are willing to help. And so as you should see that how like the Triratna and Sangharakshita and all Dhardo Rinpoche good work has really taken effect, if not all over the part of the world, at least in a part of a small town called Kalimpong. Yeah. Well, yes, they are both boys and girls, and the school has a standard till class 8, and not more than that, but we are still trying to build it up, till class 10 and at least 12, Yeah, but it's still in a process, because in India it's not easy like here, You have a lot of things going on. So the school's principal is, is really trying, and yeah. And I am trying to see what the schools, are trying to help in areas where the school needs support and so on, yeah. Yeah, and there are a lot of orphans in the school, Tibetan and from different parts, like from the borders of Tibet and so on. And yeah, so I think that this has been very helpful, because over the past 60 years, now it's been 60 years since the schools have been built. The schools has really been able to produce many, help many children, and many are overseas, and there has been many students who turn out to be musicians, because the school teaches Tibetan musician in a really good way, classical musician, music, traditional dance, and different kind of subjects, and so there's different kind of students have turned out to be really successful in their work, and have really have been able to make a good family, Of course, we can just stick to the basics, and really try to study on the basics. And but I don't know how effective it will be to really cut through our ego. And I think that meditation is a very good way of cutting our ego. But first we need to actually identify, the logic behind. I think that, in my own opinion, I think that we need some sense of logic. To be able to really penetrate into the ego. So I think that studying philosophy and not only basics of it, but I would say that there is a lot of Chandrakirti's passages and so on, and for myself, I find one passage of Lama Tsongkhapa to be very effective, especially on cutting the ego. So, for an example, something like that, so which you see and which you think that is very effective to you. Everyone has different, kind of a different set of way of thinking, and I think that important thing is finding some kind of words or some kind of passage that really, hits you hard, and which really affects you. So I think that is the important thing. Whether you, it's not necessary that you study all of the Chandrakirti's teachings, but I think that the one that really, gets you reeled in, So I think that is the part where we can study and try to practice it, take it really into heart. So that is one of my experience. Yes, yeah. Because I haven't. I can't practice even with this kind of schedule. I can't really practice all of Chandrakirti's word by word. I cannot do that. There's too many, and Nagarjuna I cannot do that, and too many Lama Tsongkhapa's word. So many commentaries, and too many texts. So what we do is we take out what we really need. Of course we need all of it, but what we can really think that really can affect us. So I think that is the important thing, where we really take out that passage, that part, and try to study on that. So that has been helpful for me, and so I don't know whether it will be helpful for all of you, because everyone, obviously, and different individual has different kind of way their mind works, and so I hope this will help. I would say one of my favorites. So that will be a little bit biased, but I'll say because it's one of my favorites. So the three principles of the path by Lama Tsongkhapa. So that exists in English. That's been translated in English, and I think that is a very concise, teaching, and I think which is quite easy also. Compared to other texts, The three principles of the path by Lama Tsongkhapa. There has been many dreams connected to this. Dreams of not of mine, but both of my parents and some of the people who are connected with the previous Rinpoches and around the family. And but those dreams I don't remember right now. So anyway, so for myself, my parents and people, around Kalimpong used to say that I used to remember, things, facets, from the previous Rinpoche's lives. Like, for instance, someone who was very close to previous Rinpoche, I used to remember his name or call out by his name and, ask him something which I wouldn't have known. But these things I have forgot. I don't remember, having said that or, like that. And so the recognition part was something like as it goes. So after a boy is particularly chosen, even after the boy is chosen, there is a test given, So the test in the sense that the previous Rinpoche's mala, the bell, and different kind of his objects, like religious objects, are given as a choice for the boy, And I think that I chose correctly, luckily or not, yeah. So yeah, I think that is the procedure that was recognized. And the Nechung oracle, this Nechung is actually the main deity protector of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and he has an oracle, and that Nechung oracle, he predicted the words. I think it was one was Ka, which says the place where I was born, as in Kalimpong, and I don't remember Ka, and I think other one was Baoma. Okay, so it's not relevant. So that was one of the predictions that gave. So that particular deity gave, and later on it was it actually was made sense, and yeah. So later on I was the the chosen one, as in Harry Potter. Yeah. Mondays, because Mondays is like weekdays for me, So Mondays the hectic schedule is no longer there, so I can read books. So when I first arrived at the monastery, even before I arrived at the monastery, members for Triratna and so on, friends, from the Triratna, they came and visited me, and I got a lot of Harry Potter books, Yeah, and by the time I was able to read them, it was I was already at the monastery, so I started reading them. And later on, I was, because of Harry Potter, I was hooked to The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, Yeah, so, yeah. It has benefited me, of course, to communicate and so on. And not only that, but when I was in the Catholic school, we had to do all the prayers, Catholic prayers, all the prayers they had, like, I don't know what the prayer is actually called, but my Father in heaven, holy be thy name, that prayer, Yeah.
The Lord's Prayer.
Yeah, is that it's called? Yeah, the Lord's Prayer, I think, with Amen at the last, Amen. Yeah. So yeah, that was a usual routine, and well, since I was not a Catholic, and we had to do something that was called moral science, and I think that really helped, because they really explain about if you do positive things, positive results will come, and if you do negative things, negative. So I think that was like a preliminary practice for me to practice before entering into Buddhism. So I think that really helped, and yeah. So, and I think the image of like Sweet Mary also inspires many people, for kindness, love, So I think that have a very positive effect on me, and I think I'm very thankful for that, not only for my English but for that preliminary practice, that it has given me. As we have to study grammar, Tibetan grammar, which is really tough, Tibetan grammar, and Tibetan history is there, and a lot of other writing, like philosophical writing. So in our exams we have oral exams, which is in form of like memorization exams, and that is really tough, the toughest, So out of 60 pages, they just pointed at one letter, and we have to begin off where they started, and so it's really tough. So that's oral exams, and then we have the debate exam, which takes half an hour, like 15 minutes. You have to question the person, and then you have to answer the 15 minutes. So that's the debate examination. And then you have 2 writing examinations. So one of them is like just based on philosophical questions, philosophical writing, and the other one is like grammar and different compositions and poetry and so on. So now I heard that we are going to get science, in our writing. So I think when I go back, I believe I have to take up science. Yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask you, do you feel the benefit of memorizing such a huge amount of text? Because in our culture we do memorize everything. So
Yeah.
I'm wondering whether, even for our own practice, it would be maybe a good thing to start memorizing.
Yeah, I think memorization, is a very effective way. Yes, I think so, because I mean, because for instance, just give an example. So how it can really affect. So we have something like 160 pages to memorize, right? And on day of exam, we go before a person. There's two persons, not one, because one can cheat. So there's two examinations. So we go give the book, and from one of the 60 pages, they just point at a random page and a random word, random sentence, and then emptiness is, and then we have to repeat after that. We have to, recite where he actually pointed. And so after some time, after reciting about 1 or 2 pages, he goes on randomly and turns a few pages and does the same thing on a different page, on a different sentence. So you see that we need to have an image of what he's trying to actually point on. And in that way, I think that it really helps in a practice too. So for instance, we have to memorize all the numbers of different kind of paths there are, and different kind of features the path can have. So that can really help us, it's like actually visualizing a mandala or something, So later on, even in stages, and so practices, I think that is one of the very important, because this can really help you have a good memory, and I think make the practice more clear, more lively. So I think this can help even in our daily lives, So if we memorize, I think it really helps. It really, and it makes the brain sharper. I think, I don't know. Maybe I am sharp. Maybe I don't know. When you're looking at the book, at reading it, and the experience of reciting and memorization is totally different. So you actually experience it, and you are able to kind of feel the words, not just looking at words and recite, but even though you are thinking of the meaning, when you recite it through the heart, there is a sense of contentment, going on there. So the white scarf is, most of you probably know, but it's a traditional ceremonial scarf, So this is usually offered as like a goodwill, sometimes respect, give respect, and for good luck, So it's a symbol of that. And it says usually the white scarf, the color of it represents your white, pure heart, Yeah. So this is the Tibetan tradition, according to Tibetan tradition, Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thanks.